For more on another eventful week in Washington, we're joined by Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill. Bob, good morning.
Good morning.
How significant is the impact of this memo?
Well, I think it's significant in that it raises some questions. But remember, we've only seen the Republican memo. We haven't seen the Democratic memo.
Will we see the Democratic
memo?
memo?
I think we will, because Republicans took so much heat in not releasing it at the same time. So this memo raises questions, and will the Democratic memo answer those questions? But it's just another example of how the House Intelligence Committee, which used to be a very bipartisan panel, is really broken.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. How does the work of that committee continue?
That's a good question. I mean, the members are on both sides of the aisle are calling each other liars. I mean, they're saying diametrically different things about what's in this memo and the veracity of it. So I think it's very difficult. Now, the Senate Intelligence Committee works very differently, very bipartisan.
What are the most significant, this memo, which was advertised as one thing, has it delivered on what it advertised?
Well, I think everything in Washington's a little bit overhyped, and I think this one was a bit overhyped. At the same time, it does raise questions of what they told the FISA court. Did they not give them the information fully that this was paid for by the Democratic National Committee, Hillary Clinton? Is that true? There are different accounts of whether that's true.
Right.
And well, then there's the question of whether that matters, because the memo does not seem to say that the intelligence presented in the dossier was somehow compromised, right? There's a question of sources, partisanship, and what meaningful effect that actually has on an investigation.
Right, Alex. I mean, I think the bottom line is the memo is making a case that the FBI was unfair and violated Carter Page's rights. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is that accurate? Now, Peter King has said there should be hearings on this. I think that's a good idea. Let's get everything out in the open and ask some questions.
Yeah, I mean, and the other points made is that they renewed this FISA order 3 times, correct?
Right.
So they had to go back to the court, and when they go back to the court, they can't present the exact same case, can they?
No, they've got to present more, but basically make the case they're making progress. And remember, a lot of this, Democrats say, is about Rod Rosenstein, who there's been a lot of speculation that Trump would fire because he was the one who set up the special counsel, and that would lead to the end of Robert Mueller. So now, others, like Republican leaders, Paul Ryan, said, no, these are separate issues, but Rod Rosenstein is mentioned in the memo.
This is not the only skirmish between the Trump administration and intelligence agencies. We know that the Justice Department has an IG that is investigating the handling of Hillary Clinton's email investigation. What is happening there, and how measurably could that affect an already polarized dynamic?
I think that's one of the most underrated stories that's about to happen. This Inspector General report, this report is being written by someone who's respected on both sides of the aisle, has worked under Bush and Obama, been critical of both, and looking at the Comey investigation. Now, remember, the FBI chief, Chris Wray, has seen preliminary findings of this report, and that led to DOJ official Andrew McCabe being pushed out. So something bad about McCabe is in that report, and maybe a lot more. Maybe some criticism of James Comey himself.
Oh, interesting. At the same time, we began this week with a State of the Union address that some people actually called unifying at the time. It doesn't, at the end of the week, we don't exactly feel unified.
No. Trump did get a bump from it, but at the same time, I don't think it moved the needle. And some people say, yeah, some Republicans and Democrats said, actually it moved them further away from a possible deal on immigration. So Trump got a bump, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to get a lot of what he asked for.
Bob, what happens with the looming second government shutdown this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically less than a week away. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see a shutdown next week. The Democrats' move last time backfired, and now I think they'll punt again into March. Now, remember, then that's where we're dealing with the Dreamer deadline. All bets are off then. I'm not sure what's going to happen then. I don't know how this story ends, but I think next week they'll punt again into March. Congress is very good at punting.
Punting seems to be the order of the day.
It's a Super Bowl weekend. That's a good metaphor. Do the Democrats feel that they completely misplayed this last time?
Well, there are a lot of conservative centrist Democrats who were up for re-election in 2018 in the Senate. They got nervous. They got very nervous, and they didn't want to be blamed. So I think that was the driving force, and Chuck Schumer, I think, learned from that and is going to use a different playbook this time.
Bob Cusack, thank you as always.
Thank you.